Hello and welcome to episode 1 of Securing ASEAN, the show where we will discuss a wide variety of technological and security challenges with experts and practitioners from around Southeast Asia and to share best practices with you at home or wherever you may be working from in these pandemic times. I'm your host, Patrick. I am a cloud security sales specialist for ASEAN here at Palo Alto Networks. And in today's episode, I'm pleased to be joined by 3 dynamic panelists. First, we have Philip, a solutions architect and office of the CSO, JPAC for Palo Alto Networks, based in Vietnam. Second, we have Shakti, head and VP of IS and IT at Funding Societies here in Singapore. And last, but certainly not least, we have Faisal, and he is the chapter lead for Cloud Security Alliance based in Indonesia. Welcome everyone to the show.
Thanks, Patrick.
Absolutely.
Thanks, Patrick.
Yeah, thanks for the introduction.
Absolutely. Well, before we get started today, I wanted to take a few minutes and I wanted to go around the panel and give each of you a chance to share a little bit about yourself. And maybe in addition to that, you could let us know how you found your way into the domain of cybersecurity. Philip, we'll start with you.
Yeah, thanks, Patrick, for the introduction. Hi, Satya and Faisal. Great to have you and on panelists together with me. So my name is Philip Kao. I've been in the cybersecurity industry for the last 20 years. For the last 20 years, focused on IT industry, right? And then the last 15 years, still totally focused on cybersecurity, right? So I've been engaged with cloud security since 2014, while I still live in Singapore and working as a solution sales consultant for a global distributor there, and we seen the trend of cloud adoption in Singapore at that time, together with the cloud security as well. So I got my CCSK, the Certificate of Cloud Security Knowledge from Cloud Security Alliance, in 2014, and recently in 2016 when I returned back to Vietnam to work for Palo Alto Networks as solution architect. So I got the CCSP, the Cloud Security Professional from IC Square as well. So I've been instrumental in developing and contributing to the cloud security community here in Vietnam as a co-founder for Cloud Security Vietnam chapter, and now is an advisor for the Cloud Security Alliance Vietnam chapter as well. So great to be here. I was on the great panelists, and I hope we can have a great discussion today.
Absolutely. Philip, thank you. Shakti.
Hey, hi. So I've been in the industry for about 10 years now, and most of my time has been in cybersecurity. I started out as a graduate trainee in Deutsche Bank, and my journey into security happened pretty unexpectedly. But I'm so glad that it has, right? Because I've never had formal education in cybersecurity until that point. But after I started working in there, I worked towards my CISSP, and through various projects that I worked on along the way, I've been able to develop my expertise in various domains. Specifically regarding cloud security, my journey actually began just when I joined Funding Society's Modality Group last year in February. So until then, I had not really worked on cloud, but since Funding Societies is a cloud native company, um, it's been quite interesting for me to also learn and grow along the way.
Absolutely.
And I'm really looking forward to a fruitful and engaging session today with all the panelists.
Absolutely. Thank you. All right. And Faisal, maybe you could share a bit about yourself.
Hi, thanks, Patrick. I've been in cybersecurity industry since 1999. Was actually my first official work is about setting up the cybersecurity or information security. That time is for Indonesian election, and those roles bring me more deep in cybersecurity as a turning point. And then I was also doing a lot of speaking session and also an official instructor for the Cloud Security Alliance and Easy Councils for the topic for mostly a balance for CISO and a red teaming. I'm starting in cybersecurity at the 99 is for the red team role. That time I become a blue team, but recently I think I balanced between that both. So I become a purple, I guess. So That was my role. And beside that, I was engaged in many activities in the community, in cybersecurity community in Indonesia. I was also AWS community builders for specifically for the cybersecurity topic. I think that's all from me, Patrick. Thanks.
Absolutely, no worries. Again, thank you guys all for sharing. Super excited to have you. And with that said, let's jump right in. So what I want to start with today is the cloud, right? So we hear a lot about companies moving to the cloud and that this has been accelerated by the pandemic that we're in right now. And so I wanted to start again going around the panel, and I wanted to hear, as all of you are based in different regions, how you are seeing cloud adoption in your region. And what are some of the barriers or concerns that you see companies facing or articulating when it comes to full-scale cloud adoption? And I'll let you guys decide who to start first.
Okay, Patrick, very nice questions, I guess. When we talking about the cloud adoption, so we are moving actually the workloads from the on-prem to the cloud. The biggest challenge right now is the mindset. People still have the same mindset as when they are on-prem. So they are still using the same architecture, like a copy-paste from whatever they have from the on-prem into the cloud base. So the challenge will be the architecture itself, beside also the mindset. The biggest change is a visibility, Patrick's. When we're talking about the cloud, it's always have a different visibility. When you move a workload from the on-prem to the cloud, you need to readjust your architecture to make sure that the visibility will not have a biggest impact on this adoption. But then the company will also, beside thinking moving to the cloud, since some of them may have the still on-prem running, the challenge is how to link between these two infrastructures. And then it raises a complexity. The complexity is actually the enemy of the cybersecurity program. Adding more location to your infrastructures could be a challenge for the perimeter. So again, what the company needs to be understand is when speaking about moving to the cloud, they must also be aware about the readiness for them in terms of the architectures, in terms of the company itself. When we're talking about the technology in a wider space, we will talking about the people, we will talking about the process, and then we will talking about the technology. This should be balanced, Patrick. I think the other panelists will have their own perception about this as well.
Well, let me follow up on that. So I know in Indonesia, there is a Google Cloud region within the country. And I know that that has been around Southeast Asia, you know, a bit of an impediment for customers to move to the cloud, you know, especially when you're thinking about data sovereignty. So with that said, I wanted to ask, we talk about challenges, but what are some of the benefits that you hear, you know, leaders in Indonesia talking about for moving to the cloud? Like, what are the positives they're hoping to get out of that?
Orchestrations, and when we're talking about the scaling, we're talking about elastic. That's a lot of things that will give a benefit for the company, especially when they are using the cloud. During the COVID-19, people not really prepared to be adaptive. They was previously prepared to be agile, working as fast, but COVID-19 introduced something different, which is emphasized on the adaptive side. So by having the cloud technology on their part of their architecture will help the company a lot, especially when they are using the cloud for this case. And then speaking about Indonesia and the data sovereignty, currently the our governments, it's still, on the way of maturity process. Speaking about the data sovereignty, there's not much I can share today about the regulation for Indonesia, but we are ongoing that way. But in terms of the regulation of the data sovereignty, there's also other best practice that we need to incorporate if you want to have your application up and run, because internet is borderless. Yes. So it's again back to the visitor who use the technology. Yeah, I think that's Patrick's.
Absolutely. Shakti, I wanna shift to you now. You mentioned that Funding Societies is a cloud-first organization. And I wonder if you could share a little bit more about what cloud-first means, what that means for Funding Societies, and did it always start that way, or was there a journey that took place to get Funding Societies there?
Right. So funding societies started out in the cloud, right? So for us, there wasn't a shift from on-premise solution to cloud. We've been in the cloud, but what did change as the company was growing, accelerated by the pandemic, of course, is that we realized that a single account architecture was not going to help us. And I just want to add on to Faisal's point, right? This is something. The journey to multi-account architecture is something that we have been accelerating and working on for the last year and also continuing through this year. And it does present its own challenges, especially being in the financial domain. Regulations are something that are, I mean, that's the first sort of priority for companies in the financial domain, be it in Singapore or in other countries in the region. We are constantly working towards ensuring that our customer data is appropriately protected and continues to do so as we keep adding workloads to the cloud or making configuration changes and whatnot.
Absolutely. Thank you. Philip, I wanted to ask you, I've been reading a lot about the economy in Vietnam, about the growth in Vietnam. Is that translating into widespread cloud adoption? Or what's the trends you're seeing in Vietnam?
Yeah, Patrick. You know that in Vietnam is a developing country, right? And we been adopting cloud. I would say not too long ago. I think it's roughly around 5 to 7 years compared to the other country in ASEAN. But it's only the big organization at that time, right? So talking about this, the last 2 years, we see in more and more company in the a medium size, not so big like before. Now try to adopt more cloud environment, and together with we talk about the startup or the fintech, right? It's starting to adopt cloud sooner to become a cloud first organization, right? Like Sati mentioned. So the trend here is that for the big organization, especially in financial service domain and some on the e-commerce side, now it's moving to the cloud as soon as possible. Also thanks to the pandemic, right? The bad side is that we already know, but the good side is that it will accelerate the momentum of cloud adoption in Vietnam. I would say so. So we've been talking, we see the trend from financial services and e-commerce and some big organization here talking about cloud as of today. Some is not even using the cloud as a to deliver service or application, but they're using cloud to use as a security service as well. So we've been talking about the other term like SASE, right? So this is already in Vietnam, and the organization is using it at the same time as of today. So I strongly believe that in the next year we will have more and more, not only the big one, the smaller size, the medium size organization will move forward and very fast to the cloud.
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely an upward trend there in Vietnam from the things I've been reading as well. So with that said, I want to move on, and Philip, I'll stay with you on this one. We're thinking about the pandemic, we're thinking about a new normal. And that new normal for a lot of people means permanently working from home, or working from home most of the time, maybe going into the office once or twice a week. And so I wanted to find out, are you seeing that in Vietnam as well? And then in addition to that, what are companies saying from a security perspective on the challenges that this new normal is creating?
Yeah. So frankly to say, before the pandemic, I've been talking a lot with the big organizations, and they are not fully prepared for the situation when almost or half of the whole organization is working remotely, not from home, but remotely, right? Because when we talk remotely, about the VPN approach organization, right? We're talking about that. VPN is no strain to us, right? But in the capacity of planning, most organization they planning around 20 to 30 people percentage, right, of the amount of workforce to work remotely or even work from home. Then never in the past that we need to make sure that 100% of our workforce capacity is working remotely, and the system will be different, right? So the existing VPN infrastructure or even the skill infrastructure is no longer affordable for this kind of scaling. And not mention about the now you also need to use to make sure that you need to have a consistent security posture. This is very important. We need to make sure that people working in the office now, they move into the home, right? We need to have the same set of security policy, same set of protection as well, right? And how can we make it permanently, right? Because it's not just you allow the user, to stop the policy, cannot. So the kind of policy enforcement and the control need to be changed a lot, and not a little bit, right? So I can see that the challenge, it's really a big challenge, because in terms of the cyber scaling, the consistent security, how to make it also at the same time maintain the what we call user experience, right? Not
Absolutely.
make users feel comfortable working from home like they are in the office, and it need to be transparent to the user, seamlessly to the user, which means that the user doesn't need to know or even care about, okay, whether I'm getting the protection, the same protection or not. I just to do my job, working, fulfill the workload that the organization gave me, and I get protected. That's all, right? So three things that I think is very important, and is a challenge in the new normal working from home, is that how to make a consistent security posture, scaling to a big amount of traffic of users, and also the user experience. To me, this is three things very important, right?
Absolutely. I mean, we've all heard, or we've all, been in situations, I think at some points in our career, where our VPN's not working, or it's slow, or we can't access files and things like that, and it really impedes getting our job done. So I want to shift, Shakti, I want to ask you, how has funding societies dealt with this? And, what's sort of been your experience in dealing with this work from home? Were you guys pretty prepared for it, do you think? Or were there quite a lot of changes that had to happen quickly in order to gear up?
So this is a very interesting question, right? Funding society. So when I joined last year in February, that's actually when we were like starting to build out our whole information security team. And we've had hires all the way, like since the time I joined, I was probably one of the first hires. And we had people joining all the way till December last year. And by that time, most of the technology teams were already like working from home on a few times a week sort of basis. And when the pandemic hit, interestingly for me, I joined to work on the enterprise security side of things. So implementing multi-factor authentication, putting in place endpoint security tools, all of those were some of the things I was supposed to, as part of my roadmap, work on later in the year. But the pandemic hit, and then my whole roadmap had to be changed. And all of these things had to be prioritized. And on the cloud side, we had to like roll out VPNs and whatnot. So in a way, I'm glad that we were able to, accomplish all of the security objectives, at least the minimal ones that we wanted to have in place to ensure a good security while people were working from home. But on the flip side, I think it also kind of took a hit on the people who were actually implementing it. So yeah, I mean, after a few months of going in that hectic mode, we also had to slow down a bit before we were able to resume some of the other things. But fast forward to now, right? I think funding societies is in a position where we are actually able to enable working from home even permanently. Although we are not recommending it, if that were to be the case, I would say we are fairly there as well.
Well, thinking about secured connectivity, user experience, the things Philip mentioned, have you seen this new reality or new normal sort of create a greater focus on cloud security in general within funding societies?
Yeah, I think during the pandemic, of course, we had an increase in customer interest in the product. So it did drive up the workloads as well. So, and as I mentioned, we were also rolling out VPN and some of the other security controls we wanted to have as part of the roadmap. But with the increase in the workloads, we also had to plan for that and ensure that appropriate controls were being put in place. And on the user side, I think there wasn't a lot of pushback, let's say, from the development team because we were able to closely work with them and they were able to easily understand why we had to implement certain security controls. But on the end user side, when we had to start restricting some of their daily activities, for example, some users, because they were so glued to their work computer and they wanted some sort of a break, were also using it for their own, I don't know, watching videos once in a while or using Facebook or LinkedIn for some time, right? So that took a lot of user education and awareness, and it's an ongoing journey. I have to be honest, I won't say we are there yet, but what we are trying to do is to take a very empathetic approach towards it and really like go down to the very, very layman terms to explain to users why something is important to them personally, more than in being important to the company. So when users understand why something is important for them personally, then they're more than willing to do it for the company. So that's something we've also learned and are working on.
It's interesting you mentioned that the break time is a video or Facebook or something. I know for me personally, I try to get up and walk a lap around the house. I just have to stare at something besides the screen. But yes, absolutely a challenge indeed. Faisal, how about you? What are you seeing in Indonesia around these topics?
First of all, the biggest challenge that we experience is to educate people when there is a difference between working at the office and working from home. The main difference is when you are working at the office, you will have an IT security team that will handle everything about your activity from the office. And those is bring a big difference when this employee is working at home or from home. When we just considering the cybersecurity protection from working from home just based on the VPN, that is, I think we need to understand that the VPN only protect the data between the home to the office, but not when the attack was coming from the home device. We're talking about the like a side channel attack from your IoT device at home. People in Indonesia so happy when they can invite a smart device to their home, but they are not really care about the patching. They are not really care about the security protection for the specific device. In reality, I did a kind of a small research that's amongst the house in my neighborhood. They have a Wi-Fi router, but the question is again how secure the Wi-Fi router is all about. When people attacking the Wi-Fi device at the office, the person should be nearby the office. But in reality, when we are working from home, I can just turn on my Wi-Fi device to scan my neighborhood device. Those things scary. Without the proper understanding about how to set up the Wi-Fi security, then it become a problem. The other issue is they just feel happy whenever they use a VPN, but not having a sufficient protection for the side attack. There is one research actually that I can quote. There's about 250 respondents when they're being asking about the what do you think about cloud security when you're moving your infrastructures from the on-prem to the cloud? It's actually 92% of them admitted that their organization has a gap between the current and the planned cloud usage compared with the maturity of the cloud security. COVID-19 is accelerate this process, but then we are in the situation where we are using cloud security. I think premature, not yet ready for that part, and but we are. I think we are improving. I mean, many organizations improve that. How could I know that? Because when I check the role position right now open for a job, mostly people open the cloud security architect, not just security architect as before COVID-19. That is
So
the
you say,
reality that is the reality we can check. We will see a lot of job position vacants on many website, and then this just emphasize that cloud security position is becoming prominent. So that the company right now, it looks like they are preparing for the what we say new normal. Will that be? We will be what we will be on the new normal. We don't know that yet because we are now still on the COVID-19. But we can expect the situation, or the reality is the company is moving to the cloud. But yes, we are not ready yet to fight the cyber threat that's happening on cloud, especially when the employee is working from home. Beside the technology, we must also educate how to properly set up and secure the perimeter from home, perhaps. I think that's all from me, Patrick's.
No, I appreciate that. So I want to clarify a couple of things you said. So what you're seeing is that customers or companies are kind of jumping in using cloud technologies without sort of thinking about what that security ramification or what that security solution should be. Is that what you're seeing?
It's that kind of, because even though they understand about what we call a shared responsibility, it is still unclear from them which need to be done on their part as a customers. When they are using a cloud service, some of them might have a mindset then, since they are using the service, so the service should be included with the security. They will assume all the security that they have currently on-prem is having the same setup as when they are using the cloud, because they just moving the workloads. Everything with that workload should be moved as well, including the level of the protection for that, what we call a digital asset. When they move that to the cloud, all the protection necessary for that digital asset should be followed that way. That is what they understand. And this is actually part of what I call a premature right now, because they think they're already there, but they actually have not. Same like what Sakti mentioned. So we are just, we just being pushed by COVID-19 to go that way as fast as possible. But in reality, we are still moving.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, I want to stay on that point with the rest of the panel. I think this is really important, this whole notion of shared responsibility in the cloud. And, there's a lot of literature on the web. If you go to any of the major cloud service providers, it seems to be pretty easy to find, pretty front and center. But, would you say in your experience, either as a practitioner or from what you're seeing in your role, Philip, do you feel that customers really understand this and really understand what their role is in securing their cloud environments? And I guess I'll let Philip start.
Yeah, Patrick, I could say, like Faisal mentioned, on the shared responsibility, right? It's all publicly on the website you mentioned, right? But I've been asking quite a lot of people, the guy who in charge for, the security architecture for the cloud, and the people who make the decision for the cloud security. And frankly to say, not much. It clicked some things to me that, wow, something's wrong here. But so because people, when they move into the cloud, maybe they're too hurry to move because the requirements of the business, right? They need to, roll out the application and service as far as possible. And sometimes there's no room for them to, properly define the role of security responsibility, or need to make sure that what are the scope that we need to invest the control and also the process, the people skill into that. So at Vietnam at this moment, but I see the good trend moving after the COVID-19, that people will need to take a look at cloud security in a different way. They need to take a look, very deeply, carefully, and now the shared responsibility is now more clearer to them, right? So I think moving, and I think not also in Vietnam, the other country will I think will do the same. We will need to take a look at cloud security. It's a different way, right? It's a
Absolutely.
more, seriously, take it as a, I would say it's a big responsibility of the cloud journey, not like before when you think cloud security is just an add-on or just an afterthought. Just move the cloud, the application service to the cloud first. Let them run first. Secure it later, right? It doesn't work that way. It doesn't work that way, right? Things will change totally different with the new normal, right? So as the security professional, I think we need to balance, right? We need to balance about the speed of moving to the cloud and also the security posture of measuring and balancing with the speed to make sure that everything that can be achieved from the perspective, from the strategy decision of the business decision maker as well.
Absolutely. Shakti, I want to ask you, as a born in the cloud company, would you say that it's always been clear, at least in what you've seen in your role, about the shared responsibility model and what it is that you guys would be focusing on to do your part to secure your cloud environment? Has it always been clear, or has it been confusing, as a customer of the cloud service providers to sort of understand that and what your role is and what you need to do?
So I think in general, the understanding of what is the responsibility of the cloud service provider versus the organization, it's a bit of a yes and no. There are instances like within funding societies, maybe a couple of years ago, the understanding of what our responsibilities are for security in the cloud was always there. But due to business priorities and as a fast growing company at that stage, maybe it did not take center stage, right? So security was still being addressed, but it was probably not being thought of um, as like one of the first things that need to be done as part of your application development lifecycle. But 2 years on now, we've also grown and in maturity, and now we have like a fully established infosec team. I would think that we are already looking at security as a priority, and any kind of business requirements would also have security being looked at from the beginning with the shift left approach. And we are taking all that's required to secure the cloud. But if I were to talk about startups in general, right, that this is where the bit of yes and no would come. So even though the DevOps team might know that that they're responsible for ensuring security in the cloud, for the same reasons as growth is important, business priorities are important, they might not bake in security from the beginning. And there might be other companies who are probably not even aware that this is our responsibility to secure our data in the cloud, because there are not enough skilled professionals for this, to take care of this thing in the company. So yeah.
Absolutely. And I think that's something that, I'm seeing as well around the region, that shortage of skilled security professionals to apply those security frameworks and policies is a challenge, I think, for all companies, really. So kind of shifting gears a bit, but staying along that, you mentioned something about, shift left, and, when I think about cloud adoption and a lot of the companies that I'm talking to, it's really around sort of changing the way that they're developing applications, taking advantage of microservices and container architectures, building out these CI/CD workflows. And what I wanted to ask all of you, I guess Shakti, will stay with you, is to what extent are you guys, baking security into that development process? And are you pursuing or any type of automation or I guess I should say DevSecOps, skill set within funding societies?
So definitely, right. Automation is now a key characteristic of our entire engineering team, not just the cloud team, for example. And we do have several controls and processes in place in our software development lifecycle and our anything that you mentioned, in addition to source code peer reviews, automated static code analysis, container image scanning, all of these are things that we've been implementing for some time now already.
Wow, that's fantastic. Are there any like learnings or best practices that maybe you'd share with the audience on that how that journey's been for you?
I think for funding societies, it's still an ongoing journey, right? So I would say like some of the things are already in place, but we are trying to improve the SDLC with the shift left approach further through this year. So, I mean, in terms of learnings, probably a little too early for me to share right now.
Okay. Sure, absolutely. Philip, obviously, we've heard a lot of good things about trends in Vietnam. Are you hearing and are some of your customers or some of the companies that you're talking to, are they thinking about this shift left methodology? Are they baking that security in to that CI/CD process?
Yeah, sure. So I've been talking with some big organization, and they already have the DevOps, not a strategy anymore. They have a DevOps team, right? And on the CI/CD integration is there. But talking about DevSecOps is quite a little bit slower because in order to do that, it's not just only the process technology. We need to understand. We need to have the people, right? The security people who understand the depth of the software development and security all together, right? And also one of the things I realized that the communication between, even you have the dedicated security team and you have a DevOps team. How about the communication between these two teams? It's really a challenge, and I would say it's always been headed to the CIO, the CISOs, right? I remember when I talking about this, not only Vietnam, previously in Big Bang in Myanmar as well. So when we work as a team, we need to make sure that the network team, the application team, and security team need to work together for the zero trust initial project, right? So it's on this team we need together to make sure that we identify the right protect surface, right, and the transition flow of the zero trust. But then we realized that everybody talking a different language, and more important, in the same organization, they rarely talk to each other. But it's good because when we bring on these three teams together, then we finally find out the same language, and on the team would continue to talk to each other and understanding each other, like the same in Vietnam. So after you do that, wow, all the team say, wow, it's not hard that much when talking and discussion as a team together. Then they started to build the internal culture in the IT organization, and then it's more easier to integrate the ship lab strategy into the development software development life cycle. So now in Vietnam, we are talking now about DevSecOps. As of now, we have the community, we have the people who instrument in the DevSecOps, right? But it's still, I would say, it's still on that's a long run, right? It's still in the long run. We need to have more and more activity, to be, awareness, increased awareness of the ship lab strategy, and make it into action.
Fantastic. Yeah. Certainly looking forward to a lot of great things that come out of Vietnam. I wanted to ask, we've heard a couple of different times we talk about the skill shortage. Do you see automation or different tools that offer automation? Do you see this as a way to sort of bridge that gap?
Yeah, so when we're talking about, like Faisal mentioned earlier about, process, people, process, and technology, right? Absolutely. So I would re-emphasize that people is the more important, because people will define the process and people will choose the right and proper technology, right, to fit into the cybersecurity program. But when we are short of the qualified people, how can we do? We need to use the superior technology, right, to have fulfill the harder parts, right, that to cover most of the biggest, more challenges, activity and tasks for us first, before we have time to build up and get the people to be qualified, right, and develop the people as well, right? So automation is key, because with security automation, you can also shorten the path to detection and response, together with the what we call the automate the process, right? Saving the effort from the people and time and resources. So for sure, security automation with the tool integration and process on people together will make a different session. Yeah, and to me, it's super important at this moment. We need to balance that part, right? And using the tool for our security automation is a must-have at this moment.
Yeah, I think when I think about it, I kind of envision a world of machines fighting machines, right? So we know obviously bad actors are leveraging, automation in their attacks, and so it makes sense to leverage automation and security as well. I think so. So last topic that I want to cover, in the time that we have today, is we've been hearing a lot about this notion of zero trust, and I think it's quite a hot topic in security now, especially in the cloud. And I'm keen to hear that, is this something that should play a role in strategic considerations for companies? What exactly should that mean to customers and or to companies, I should say? And I think that this would probably be different depending on, the size of the company, probably, we talk about born in the cloud companies or companies that have more of a legacy, data center architecture. So, but should companies be looking at zero trust? Should they be embracing it? And if so, what should it mean to these different companies? And I'll let Faisal start with that, if that's okay.
Okay, thanks, Patrick.
Sure.
Just very good questions and consideration inside as well. And okay, but before answering that, we need to understand the terminology for the zero trust. In the mechanism for the zero trust, the concept, it's like we actually never trust. We always verify for each of the interactions. That is the main concept for the zero trust. And then this works basically on the layer 7 from the OSI layer, is for the threat preventions. That's the idea, actually. And then simplify what we call a granular access, user access control. So we keep verifying for all the access activity for the asset. But then again, we must identify what we call a protect surface. This protect surface is made up with the most critical, valuable, what we call a data, asset, application, and service. That's DAAS in short. And then from having this protect surface, we will identify all the access being made to that area. Okay. So then what we will have eventually a micro perimeter from having this all DAAS. Okay, so back again, the benefit and etc. is actually like the previous cybersecurity concept design was based on the confidentiality, integrity, and availability. That's the CIA. But then again, what we'll have on experience in the last couple years, we experience a privacy risk, meaning that we are no longer dealing with the massive attack against infrastructures, because they know now the infrastructures can be outsourced. So the big question is how to protect this DAAS again. So that's the idea for having zero trust. This brings a lot of benefit for the company, especially for them who are allowing the employee working from home. So they're verifying all the access being made to that micro perimeter. So this applies to all, not only for the customers, Patrick, but also for their employees. By implementing the zero trust, what they could expect is they are actually leveraging their current security protections to avoid any, what I call undetected, or maybe the new type of the attack. Okay, because traditional cybersecurity actually working based on the signatures, like the antivirus. When you have your antivirus up and run on your laptop, it will detect the virus only based comparing with their data, with their signatures on that antivirus. Okay, so antivirus works that way. That is what I call a traditional cybersecurity. But the new cybersecurity right now is actually we need to have we need to be able to triage the attack and see the pattern of this activity. It can be set as malicious activity only after we combine several attempt to attack into the network. Okay, so again, this will have, I mean, by having the zero trust, it could minimize the potential of this attack. I'm not saying eliminate, but mitigate or minimize the number of this pattern attack to the micro perimeter. I think that's a benefit, Patrick's, but not only from the customers, but also for the employee perspective as well.
Absolutely, Paso. Thank you. Shakti, let me ask you, I thought you mentioned zero trust. Is this a priority at funding societies?
I don't think I did, but let me answer
Oh,
it.
sorry.
For yeah, no worries. For us, as we are still like strengthening our security posture, including cloud security, I don't think we are looking at zero trust and aiming for it and working towards it. But what we are trying to do is to take a role-based approach for users to access any of the systems. If you have a role which allows you a particular access to the system and you have authenticated yourself using multi-factor authentication, then you're allowed to access the resource. And for critical resources, we've set up alerts and monitoring in place, which happens in real time. So if there's someone accessing, it throws up alerts to the other team, which would then check and validate if with the user who did the particular access, whether it was required and for what purposes.
So I would, when I kind of think about it, I know there's a bit of a controversial topic, but, it seems like maybe it's a sort of utopia state to achieve a true zero trust architecture. Philip, what do you think about that? Is that what you would say, or how would you characterize it?
Yeah, so zero trust is always my favorite topic
Oh,
during the years.
glad I asked you.
Yeah, because yeah, I've been engaging with zero trust for the last 7 years, and I'm a zero trust strategic certified professor as well. So I've been dealing with zero trust for the real project as well, not just only on theory and on the discussion anymore. So to me, zero trust, the first challenge when we talk about zero trust is that there's a lot of misleading about zero trust around us, right? So we need to come back to the right definition of zero trust modeled by Forrester. That's the thing I need to emphasize, because it's the right approach. So we talk about ZTX, right? Zero trust extended framework with the 7 core pillar of zero trust is there. We need to focus on that. Back to basic, right? And back to the K of Sati mentioned, actually you already have the zero trust capability in place, but maybe you don't realize that. When you talk about enforcing the roam-based access, you monitoring, you already cater the people and the visibility and analytic pillar of ZTX already, right? Some portion of it, right? So but back to the zero trust, people think zero trust is a product. People think zero trust is technology, or the solution is not that. Zero trust had to start as a strategic level. It had to be a strategy, right? And when we move, especially when we move to the cloud, zero trust is more important, because like Faisal mentioned, never trust, always verify. You cannot trust even the cloud service provider. You cannot trust the cloud user, right? And the way that we treat all the relevant stakeholder is never trust, always verify. So I've been sharing with the organization that we have, in my own opinions, is that we should embrace what we call a 5-step proper approach for zero trust. That I sharpen on the spirit that I've been talking with organization in ASEAN across the several years. So the first step, we need to build what we call a zero trust strategic, right? Strategy approach would make a zero trust strategy to align with the business strategy. This is very important to make sure that zero trust is a business-driven approach, not like in the past when we talk about the cost center in terms of cybersecurity. Now it's no longer that way. Zero trust is a business-driven approach. First thing, when we have the strategy, then the second step, you need to build a zero trust architecture. And the zero trust architecture that we build is very much different. We need to have different, we can leverage some existing control, but we need to put in the new control as well. With the adoption, what we call the cloud, AI, machine learning, business analytics, big data, all on this thing, there's some set of new control that we need to put in place. And after you have this architecture, it's right time to build what we call a zero trust ecosystem. And the ecosystem now is built in a modular architecture with full of, deep integration, automation, correlation, and orchestration as well, all in place, following the ZTX framework, right? And how to build that? The zero trust ecosystem need to build based on the platform, not by point product anymore, right? And how to choose the provider. See from the report from Forrester, every year they come out with the what we call the zero trust as standard ecosystem service provider, and that's the independent evaluation of Forrester onto the provider. Choose the leader in that part, form a zero trust ecosystem, and the last step, which is step number 5, is also very important and need to take into consideration is that how to choose the proper zero trust capability, right? So talking about capability may be equal to technology, but in terms of zero trust, we call it zero trust capability, right? That kind of zero trust capability need to be well aligned with the 4 steps, right? And more importantly, align well with the strategy and architecture, and not to mention that it need to support the SecOps in the most simplest way, right? And the more, fastest way possible. So this is the key 5 steps that I've been sharing with our nation for adopting zero trust, right? So hopefully can help some organization out there. When you move to zero trust journey, you can have, some kind of, a reference approach so that you can make your zero trust journey to the fullest.
Absolutely. Philip, thank you for that. Thank you for sharing. Thank you again to all of our panelists. Unfortunately, that is all the time that we have today. But Shakti, Faisal, and Philip, I want to thank you again for joining us and taking the time to share with you at home or wherever you may be working from. Please be on the lookout for future episodes of Securing ASEAN. We would love to hear your feedback on our pilot episode today. We would love to hear, are there any specific topics that you would like us to cover and like us to chat about? Please comment down below, and we definitely would appreciate your feedback. So with that being said, once again, thank you to our panelists. And again, my name is Patrick. Have a great day ahead, and thank you for joining us. Goodbye.